Hello, I'm Colleen Pearl, the Cool Crone, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for all of your comments. And for all my new subscribers, thank you and welcome. I'm so glad you could join us. In today's video, we will be looking at all the major astrological events for 2021 and how they relate to the sign Gemini. You should watch the video for your rising as well as your sun sign, as both will be very informative. 2021 has a lot happening astrologically, so let's get into it. Hello, Gemini. New Year's Day 2021 starts out with a couple of important things. In your 8th house, you have had Pluto for forever, and I'll tell you about the 8th house in just one second. But now in January, you also have the Sun and Mercury there for the beginning of 2021. Now, the 8th house pertains to shared resources, or as I like to call it, big money. So this is where you have the mortgage for the house, the big loans, the 401k plans, the retirement funds, the IRAs. It also rules sex, death, taxes, regeneration and transformation, and the occult. So you've had Pluto there for forever. So these things have taken on kind of a key role in your life. It's probably an area where you are not thrilled to have to focus, but you've gotten better over the years focusing on it because you had to. Because you had to look at things like, how do you handle your taxes? How do you handle your mortgage or your retirement fund? How do you handle your sexual relationship and the fact that there's a power imbalance whenever two people join their monies together and one person has more money than the other? So power struggles in your relationship have been dealt with too. The occult part of it would also speak to the idea that if you are a student of metaphysics or the occult or magic, that your power in this area has increased. Your ability to control your powers and use your powers and discover your powers has really increased over the last decade. And that's how long Pluto's been there, is 12 years. So Pluto is giving you a lot of power right now. And now in the beginning of 2021, the Sun and Mercury are coming along, which they have done every January for the last 12 years, and spotlighted this. So January for you has become a time of saying, oh, we have to look at this stuff again. Not necessarily, oh, it's a new year. What will my resolutions be? For you, it is, oh, I gotta do something and talk to my partner about this power struggle thing that's going on, or whatever, or we got to talk about our 401k, or we got to do our taxes, or, you know, one of those 8th house subjects that I just talked about, you have to revisit every January because the Sun and Mercury come along every January and sit on it and shine light on it. You also have, in January, you also have, in your 9th house, you have Saturn and Jupiter that have just arrived in Aquarius there. And that's really nice. That's a really nice placement for it. So Aquarius in the 9th house gives you a sort of a visionary idea of the world, a kind of a bird's eye perspective on the world, and other cultures, but also a little detached. So getting into things like different religions, different philosophies, even traveling to foreign countries, you have a kind of a detached perspective there anyway. But with Saturn and Jupiter coming there, it brings it into focus in a new way. For one thing, with Jupiter there, you may just fall in love with a new country or a new culture or a new religion or a new philosophy. And with Saturn there, you may find that you're learning about yourself through learning about these other cultures. So very interesting. Now, Saturn will try to restrict you. So it may, I mean, we've got COVID going on, so who's traveling anyway? But if you wanted to take a big trip to a part of the world where this culture is practiced, then you probably haven't been able to do that. Maybe you have. And Saturn is trying to restrict you in some way. So Saturn would try to hold you back. It would try to rein you in with rules. It would try to restrict what you could do or where you could go, or just how you would enjoy it. Now, Saturn isn't always a wet blanket. Saturn also gives you the ability to study things for long periods of time. It gives you the ability to persevere in your pursuit of whatever area of life it's focusing on. It gives you crystallization. It gives you the ability to hone in and really see with clarity what's going on. So to really learn something. So if you're learning about a religion or a language or a cuisine or a culture, you're going to learn it thoroughly with Saturn focusing there. And it's Saturn's focus and structure that allows you to do that. So Saturn isn't always the bad guy. Very often Saturn gets a bad rap. You know, oh God, my Saturn return, that's going to be awful. No, not so. Saturn is a blessing when it comes to learning because it does focus you and it does give you clarity. On January 14th, we have a moon in Aquarius, a crescent moon in Aquarius, that's going to spotlight that Aquarius, Saturn, Jupiter influence even more. So it's going to give you a little more oomph, a little more heart, a little more impetus to really get into all of that stuff. And so you may be planning a trip, you may be watching a travel channel about it, or you may be watching a documentary about it if you can't actually travel there. You may be engaging in some kind of volunteer work to get to know more about whatever this philosophy or culture is that you want to get into. Then on January 16th, in your 12th house, we have Mars conjunct Uranus. And on the 14th, Uranus will have, the same day as that crescent moon, Uranus will have just moved direct. Uranus rules big weather events, natural disasters in the world. And when it's been retrograde, it doesn't stop doing those things. Witness 2020, we've had plenty of natural disasters and weather events. But when it goes direct, it usually means some big thing is going to happen on that day or the next day. Uranus is one of those planets that delivers. You know how you always hear about, oh, there's a grand cross and 85 signs and 180 planets are all there. And then you live through it and you're kind of going, that didn't do anything for me. What are they talking about? Because you don't have anything in your chart that clicked, that had those degrees of those signs in your chart. So it didn't hit anything in your chart that was sensitive. But with Uranus, you don't have to be that sensitive. You don't have to have much in your chart to see that it will hit people in a personal way too, but it's one of those planets that is slower moving, so it's a non-personal planet, and it affects the world at large. It affects the planet, right? So on the 14th of January, something big's going to hit the fan. It's just going to hit the fan. It's just going to happen. And then on the 16th, Mars conjuncts with Uranus. So that's going to complicate it. So I don't know if there's going to be two events or if there's just going to be one big event, but there is definitely going to be a big event. It could be something. I mean, Mars rules sharp things and knives and blood and war and things like that. So it could be something kind of ugly happening. And that's right before the inauguration. Wow, that's bad. But it's not good. It's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be good. Nobody's going to love what happens. But on a personal level, for you, Gemini, it's going to happen in your 12th house. So are you going to have disturbing dreams? Probably. Are you going to have some kind of rude awakening about something having to do with your subconscious, some kind of memory that suddenly comes back, or some kind of premonition? Probably. So that's just something to be aware of in January. And then we go to the end of January, the 30th, and that's when we have our first Mercury retrograde of the year. It is retrograde in Aquarius, and it won't go direct until February 20th. So Aquarius is a sister sign for you. So this is going to be in your 9th house. And that's where those planets were at the very beginning of the year. And now there's more planets there. They've moved into Aquarius from Capricorn. And you've got Jupiter, Saturn, Sun, and Mercury now in Aquarius at the end of the month. And Mercury's going retrograde. So Mercury's really going to hang out there for a while. So this is learning. This is reaching out for other cultures. This is reaching out for writing, for the internet, for vlogging, for blogging, for outer space, for the publishing industry. So you could have activities going on under any of those umbrellas. And that would be a great use of your energy during Mercury retrograde. Now, I wouldn't start writing a book under Mercury retrograde. I wouldn't try to publish a book under Mercury retrograde, but you can certainly study, research, analyze, plan, prepare. You can certainly lay the groundwork for something big in that ninth house arena while Mercury is retrograde there. And then on the 11th of February, we have a new moon in Aquarius, and that's going to highlight that area even more and give you more of an impetus to do what it is that you're trying to do. And actually, that's probably when you'll start it. And then on the 17th, while Mercury is still retrograde, we have Saturn squaring Uranus. And Saturn squaring Uranus is not like Mars. It's more controlled because Saturn is control, it's structure, it's delay. So we could have something that gets set off, some event, maybe a natural disaster event or a weather event that gets set off on the 17th, and Saturn delays the actual result of it for some time, and then we hear about it later. Or it happens later. And then at the end of the month on the 27th, we have Mars trine Pluto. And Mars is going to be in Taurus and Pluto is going to be in Capricorn. So this is a positive aspect. This is Mars giving Pluto a boost. So for you in the 8th house, this is where you can resolve some of those issues that you've been having concerning shared resources or the occult or the study of the occult or taxes or sex or death or whatever. This is where you get a big boost of energy from Pluto and Mars to be able to attack it, address it. Okay? So that's actually a very helpful time, and that's February 27th. So it's the end of February. Then we move on to... I already mentioned that Mercury does go direct on February 20th, and that trine happens a week later. So there's no Mercury retrograde messing up that trine between Mars and Pluto. All right, now we're on to March. March is a really great month. March starts with the Sun being conjunct Neptune for a little while, probably lasts a week or so. For you, this falls on your house for your career, your 10th house. So if you are in any kind of a creative field, this is fabulous for you. The Sun is your heart, it's your ego, it's what you live for, right? In this case, the Sun is in Pisces, which is squaring if you're a Gemini rising, it's squaring your rising sign. However, it's conjuncting Neptune, which is the ruler of Pisces. So this is very strong. This is giving you tremendous creativity, imagination, flamboyance, fantasy. All of these impulses, these creative impulses are emphasized and buoyed up, supported with the Sun there. So it's also a really good time to get in touch with your spiritual side, to meditate, to maybe go into, get hypnotized. Hypnosis would work really great under this aspect. But Neptune and Pisces are the sign that really get into the subconscious. And that's why hypnosis is big in the sign of Pisces. And for you, when it's falling in your house of career, that's why I'm saying if you're in a creative career or any kind of a career where you use your imagination is going to go bananas with this aspect. Now, right after that, on March 13th, Venus is conjunct Neptune. Again, a big push of energy in the direction of romance, fantasy, female energy, love, creativity, spirituality. Now, I would hesitate to say you should start a relationship under this because it's also Venus conjunct Neptune can also be the Svengali effect where somebody really takes over. They're like cult leader-ish, kind of effect. So I would be careful about that. But as far as using the energy just for yourself, again, if you have any kind of a creative flavor to your career, this is a fantastic, another fantastic aspect that would really boost that creativity and imagination and fantasy, especially. So even if your career has anything to do with the arts or creativity, even sales or putting something on the internet, the visual aspect of it would be beautiful. The fantasy aspect of it would be supported. The creative and just ingenious aspect of it would be supported with these signs. At the end of the month, Venus moves out of Pisces into Aries, and it conjuncts Chiron. Now, Chiron is known as the Rainbow Bridge and the Wounded Healer. The Rainbow Bridge because it orbits between Uranus and Saturn. So the new is Uranus, the old is Saturn. And so it bridges the old and the new, right? It heals the rift between the old and the new. It also is known as the Wounded Healer because it is the place in your chart where you have some kind of a wound or trauma. Usually this occurs in childhood or late teens, early 20s, and it gives you a place where that wounded piece of you can hold you back. So when we're looking at Venus and Chiron together, we're looking at an opportunity to heal that wound. And where you heal the wound in your chart that is indicated by Chiron gives you the tools to heal others. So it's a really beautiful thing to have. It's a good thing to work on. It can help you express and find your potential and work with your potential in a much bigger way. Not to mention you just are relieved of the burden of this wound. You heal the wound so you don't feel bad anymore. And that's going to fall into your 11th house. The 11th house is the house for groups. It's hopes, dreams, and wishes. And very often this is a house that gets emphasized in people's retirement, right? Where they finally get to do all the hobbies they've never done. They finally get, they finally get to travel to all the countries they've wanted to see all their life. Or they finally get to start that charity organization that they always thought was so necessary. So with Venus and Chiron there, you have the ability to heal the wound, but then also probably be a part of a group, I would say, because it's the house for groups and societies. You would have a group that you would work with to pass on that healing to others and help others grow and heal from your experience or your help. Really, really beautiful, beautiful aspect. Then we come to May. Now in mid-May, May 14th, Jupiter finally moves out of Aquarius and into Pisces. So it spends about a little over 2 months. 4 months, sorry. It spends about 4.5 months in the sign of Aquarius, and then it moves into Pisces. Jupiter loves being in Pisces. Jupiter is the classical ruler of Pisces. In the days when many planets ruled 2 signs, Jupiter ruled both Sagittarius and Pisces. So Jupiter's very at home in Pisces. Jupiter in Pisces is going to give this country a taste of what it feels like to really be taken care of and cared for by one's government. It's going to really go a long ways towards helping people trust the government again, to trust our elected officials. So that's one thing that's really beautiful. But for you, because it's going to be in your house for your career, it's going to give you a huge boost in your career. So March is the time to really make a push in your career. And I'm guessing that your career is probably, if you've got Gemini rising, then your career is going to be ruled by Pisces. So it's going to be something to do with something somewhat creative, something where you have to deal with people a lot, even though a lot of Pisces, energy feels like they're, antisocial. But this is your 10th house. If you have Gemini rising, you're very much about people. Pisces also rules the feet, so it could be that your career has something to do with feet. It could have something to do with service. Very often, people with a strong Pisces influence will be in service in some way, either in a holy order or in the healthcare industry or in even things like security. They're caring for people. They're helping people. They're They're advising people, counseling people, protecting people, healing people. They're serving people. And you've got Jupiter there. Jupiter is the great benefic. It's the bestower of gifts. It's the lucky planet. So this is why I'm saying during the month of May would be a great time for you to push for a promotion, or even if you're switching jobs, to get into a job that's a little more in line with your values. That would be a good time to do it because Jupiter's on your side right then. At the end of the month, we have our first eclipse of the season. The eclipse season begins on May 26th with an eclipse in Sagittarius at 5 degrees 26. Now you have Gemini rising. So if your rising sign is from 0 to 10 degrees of Gemini, this eclipse is going to affect you positively quite a bit. And because you have Gemini rising, this is also most likely going to hit on the other sensitive points in your chart for eclipses, which are the opposite sign to your rising sign, the descendant, your midheaven, which is the 10th house, which is what we've been talking about, your career, or the 4th house, which is the IC, or the cusp of the actual 4th house. So chances are that this eclipse is going to be really important for you. If not on the day of the eclipse, afterwards, when planets hit that 5 or 6 degrees of Sagittarius, you're going to feel again what the energies were on the eclipse, and it will help refine whatever changes came about, or it will change them significantly, or bring them to a conclusion, a resolution. On the 29th of May, Mercury goes retrograde again, but this time in Gemini. It's going to be retrograding in air signs all through 2021. And that's going to be emphasizing your first house. So this retrograde is really, really going to hit you right between the eyes. So you're probably going to forget your keys. You're probably going to get locked out of the house or your car once or twice in those 3 weeks that Mercury's retrograde. You may, burn something in the toaster or blow up your toaster. You may have a problem with your computer, or your computer may crash. You may just have trouble communicating with people, getting people to meetings, getting people on the phone. It's just going to be a difficult time for communications in general, because Gemini is your rising sign and Mercury is retrograde right there in your rising sign. Your rising sign, the first house, is you. It's the way you look. It's the way you dress, the way you present yourself to the world. It's also how you feel about yourself, but more so it's how people see you. So it's your brand. It's your brand. So when you've got Mercury there all retrograde, and that's your ruling planet to top it off, that's a whole basket of hammers. That's just really hard to handle, but you can handle it. You're a Gemini. You think quick on your feet. I'm sure you have been in this position before, where you have come into a room, forgotten what you're there for, and then just winged it to get out of it if you interrupted a meeting or something. Geminis are really good at thinking on their feet. So I don't think you'll have big problems with this Mercury Gemini. And in fact, it may feel very comfortable for you. You may feel like, what, Mercury is retrograde? I didn't even notice. Because it's your ruling planet. It's an energy that you're familiar with. And it's just not that bad. Mercury is a very neutral planet. It doesn't really do bad things. It screws things up. It makes miscommunications. But is that really life and death? Not really. So that's May. And then we go into June. And on June 10th, we have the answering eclipse to the one that started on May. We have the solar eclipse in Gemini. So this is another emphasis for you, Gemini, on you, on your brand. So the solar eclipse could be a big kapow shot in the arm. So if your rising sign is not 0 to 10 degrees of Gemini, but if it's more like 15 to 25 degrees of Gemini, this solar eclipse is the one that's really going to hit you right between the eyes. This is going to be major change in your life because it's your first house. So this is when you change the way you look, change your hair, change the way you dress, change the way you brand yourself. That's what this is really going to be about. Change the way people see you. maybe change jobs, but I don't think that's usually for Geminis. I don't think that's really how they brand themselves. They're much more aware of who they are and what their gifts are. They don't usually define themselves by their job. That's more of an earth sign thing. So also Mercury's still retrograde when this solar eclipse happens in your first house. So happy birthday, Gemini. I know you're Gemini rising probably, but for the Sun Geminis who are watching this, happy birthday. All this stuff is happening right on top of you. Now, 4 days later, we have a square between Saturn and Uranus. And we've already had one of these squares. Saturn and Uranus are pretty much in the same places. So just go back and listen to what I said before about Saturn and Mercury, or Saturn and Uranus squaring. There's still an uncomfortability about this. There is still a degree of something that you have to deal with because something suddenly, unexpectedly happens and you just have to deal with it. Saturn just makes you responsible and you have to deal with it. Then on June 21st, a week after that square, we have Jupiter going retrograde itself back into Aquarius. Now, when the larger planets go retrograde, it's not like Mercury retrograde. They don't mess things up according to what they rule. What happens is they either kind of go to sleep or they just lose power a little bit, a lot actually. But Jupiter is it's the biggest planet, right? So Jupiter's not going to lose a lot of power. It's going to diminish a little bit. It's sleepy, right? Let's just say it that way. And it's going to go back into Aquarius. So it's going to give us more of that humanitarian energy, more of that, I bet when this happens in June, I bet there's going to be more stuff like money coming from the government, jobs, programs starting, new building, infrastructure starting to create more jobs, more basically government handouts, more stuff is coming from the government. That's what that Jupiter Aquarius is really going to be about. And it's going to be quite nice actually for all of us. And Aquarius is a sister sign to you. So that's going to be very helpful and complementary for you, Gemini rising. Then on the 22nd, the next day, Mercury does go direct. So look for the fact that they'll announce this governmental stuff June 21st, but something's going to hang it up. And then on the 22nd, it's all going to happen and it's all going to come out. So that's really nice. And then July 1st, we have another Mars. We have the opposition between Mars and Saturn. Mars is in Leo, which is a good sign for you. And Saturn is in Aquarius, which is a sister sign for you. So that's not bad. But that opposition is extreme tension between these two planets. Leo is your third house. So this has to do with your ideas. So Mars and Leo transiting your third house anyway, and Venus is right along with him at this time. Not conjunct, but close. For all intents and purposes, they're conjunct because they're personal planets. So we'll give it to them. So Jupiter and Venus are opposing Saturn, and that Venus will help soften this opposition a little bit. So this is your third house. It's opposing Saturn in your ninth house. And both of these houses have to do with ideas, your ideas. The third house has to do with talking, speaking, writing, blogging, posting, things like that. Letters, messages, DMs, PMs, whatever. The ninth house is more to do with the actual internet. What's the reaction of those posts? What happened when you published something or created a new website or opened your Instagram account? What was the result of that? So the third house is you personally creating it and what's bubbling up out of you that you must communicate to others. And the ninth house is having it out in the world and what's the reaction to that. It's the bigger picture, because the bottom part of the chart is always the more personal, more having to do with childhood. The top part of the chart is more your adult life and how you are engaging and interacting with the world. So this opposition is just typifying that out in the world there are critics, Saturn. And in your world, there are people who love you and think all of your ideas are great, including you. And that's Venus and Mars. So that's going to be an interesting time. That's July 1st. You'll just have to leave me a comment and let me know how that really hit you. But that's going to be a big day. That's going to be a day that something happens, something forces you, impulses you, compels you to put something out there, and there may be criticism for it. Now, the rest of the summer is pretty quiet. We now come into the end of September. So we've got about 2.5 months, July, August, and most of September, where it's very quiet and there's no big major, there's astrological events, but no big major icky ugly ones. And then on September 27th, Mercury goes retrograde in Libra, again, an air sign, a sister sign to you. And that's going to happen in your 5th house. So it's fun, so it's the summer's pretty much over. So you're probably trying to get, the last trip to the beach in before everything closes down again, because it's probably the first time you've been to the beach in 2 years at that point. And your 5th house with Libra is all about having fun. So you're probably trying to get together with friends. You're probably trying to kick up your heels one last time. And there may be some little snafus, but this will all turn into funny stories that you laugh about later, because there's no big, ugly harshness to any of this stuff. There are aspects, yes, but there's not going to be some real big difficulties. Then we have in mid-October, October 17th, Jupiter finally goes direct. Nice. So it goes direct, still in Aquarius. So a lot of those things that they were talking about, the jobs programs and stuff like that, those are going to get a push forward. And then Mercury goes direct on October 18th. So all the stuff, all the fun things that you were trying to get going, that's going to go forward too. So your trips, your connections with friends and loved ones in October, that's going to go well after the 18th, when Mercury stops causing all the communication problems. Then November 15th, we have a big opposition between Mars in Scorpio and Uranus in Taurus. So this is going to straddle your 6th house to 12th house. So this may be uncomfortable for you, Gemini. This may be dealing with things on your job with the Mars. There may be some event or blow up in your job situation, and it may really bother you. Subconsciously, you may be really worried about things, and those tensions are going to come to a head. So just know that around November 15th, there's going to be some real tension having to do not with your career per se, but the job and the people you work with at the job. Or this could manifest as your health and the way you take care of yourself. So it could be a health scare. It could be, anxiety attack, panic attack, or something like that. But if you don't suffer from things like that, then more likely it has to do with coworkers and your relationships with people on the job. Also in November, on the 19th, we have another eclipse. We have a lunar eclipse at 27 degrees 14 minutes in Taurus. So this is also in your 12th house. That's going to put the emphasis on the subconscious, on things that you dream about, things that you maybe forget about most of the time. Also, though, the 12th house is the house of self-sabotage. And with the eclipse happening there, maybe you'll decide to finally stop self-sabotaging. Maybe you'll finally decide to heal that little Chiron wound and stop blaming yourself or being ashamed for whatever it was that happened to you, because that's very often what people feel. So that's the lunar eclipse on the 19th. And then going into December, we have the answering solar eclipse at 12 degrees Sagittarius on December 4th. And that is going to fall into your 7th house. So that's going to affect partnerships for you in a positive way. It's a solar eclipse. And so it could be that you meet somebody or that you're going to meet somebody as other planets go over that 12 degree Sag point in your chart. The final chart of the year that we're looking at is Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2021. And it starts off with the third Saturn square Uranus, or the big square that Uranus is just going through a bunch of squares and oppositions this year. It's very difficult. And Saturn in Aquarius is going to square that Uranus in Taurus in your 12th house. So Saturn is going to be in your 9th house. And so you're dealing with dreams, spirituality, things that seem very, very far away. So if you can use that in some way, great. But go back and listen to the other part of the video where I talk about the square between Uranus and Saturn and what that's really going to mean, because they haven't moved appreciably, and it's going to repeat that energy. So it's going to be pretty much the same influence and the same energy as you felt before. The very last astrological event of the year that I want to talk about is December 30th. Jupiter goes back into Pisces, and I believe that at this time, because we know it's not going to retrograde anymore, it's going to go forward in Pisces. So I think that this is the point in time where the country really believes that we are in good hands, that things are happening, and that it's a good thing for us. It's hard. This country does need to heal. And it's not going to be easy for us to heal if we keep having people saying that, people cheated and it's not, good. But also, those people who are saying those things were not telling the truth. And I think for us to believe now that politicians are telling the truth, it's going to take some time. They have to build up trust with us. And this on December 30th with Jupiter moving into Pisces, I think this marks the beginning of an era where we do believe that they have our best interests at heart, and that they are compassionate, not corrupt, and that they will take care of us. And that's what I think that's about, really, around New Year's of 2021. So that's the wrap up, Gemini, for you. I hope this was a good reading for you. If you're interested in getting a personal reading from me, you can see my information right down here. And please look at my website and take a look at my offerings, and then we'll get you hooked up. Just click on that services tab and make an appointment. You can also email me, ask me questions, or if you want to ask questions about readings. I'm so glad that you stayed to the end. I hope this was an informative reading for you, Gemini, and I wish you the best of luck in the year. It's not a comfortable year for anybody, but you've got those eclipses and a lot of things hammering down on you, so it's going to be challenging for you this year. Make sure that you've subscribed and you've hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Please give us a like. That really helps the channel. And I really look forward to seeing you next time. Best of luck, Gemini.